Welcome fellow Azerothians to On Cooldown, the show where we look at things and tell you about them, mostly things about WoW, but sometimes about Article 13. It's Friday, and the fight for creative freedom continues. I know you know, or think you know what I'm going to say, and however annoying and cumbersome you think this will be, please watch the full video. It might sound insincere of me asking you to watch my video, but we at Marcelian never expressively requested this until today. Some people might think this video comes a bit late, but for this specific topic, it's never too late. Not yet. Okay, so by now most of you know about the so-called Article 13. Some people think it's just a bad thing. Some people think it's whatever, not going to pass. I'm ashamed to admit that until recently I haven't given it proper thought. But once I started being able to make a living out of YouTube, of course, my circle of interest started to include any possible threat to my livelihood. This started out of my personal interest being at risk. And yes, it is very selfish, and I honestly wish my motives were, well, more honest when it comes to this legislation being passed. I'm saying this because I want to be as transparent as I can and come across as much as an open book as I can manage. My interest in Article 13 and the threat to YouTube started to peak some time ago, and I started reading up on it. Once I painted a picture in my head, I actually started to get worried, and I will go into that in a bit. You guys probably know a bit about my style by now. I like to debate and talk about things at length. Obviously, I want to keep this as relevant and short as possible. A lot of amazing content creators have debated this subject by now, and most, if not all of us, are opposed to this so-called article being passed as a law in EU or the European Union. First, I feel like I need to explain what Article 13 is, in case some people still have doubts, but more so that you know that I know what I'm talking about. Article 13 is part of a bigger directive called the Directive of the European Parliament and of the Council on Copyright in Digital Single Market. As a footnote, I will leave as many resources down in the description, links to official material for anyone curious enough on the actual legislation, since I won't talk at length about the whole thing, just summarizing with my words and thought things. The purpose of this legislation is to, allegedly, protect intellectual property owners and their IPs from being victims of copyright infringement. This is something everyone should be behind. People who create things like music, films, games, etc. should have their intellectual property protected, and they should benefit from their work without other potential third-party people using it for their benefits, usually economical ones. The issue with this is that it can and will have side effects or unintended consequences for creative content creators, like Philip DeFranco, or more in our side of the court, Bellular, Taliesin, and maybe some other nerds who operate in a smaller corner of YouTube. The potential side effects of this legislation being passed as a law, yes, it's not a law yet, is that it can and will block content deemed inadequate from a copyright perspective in the EU. The legislation will make YouTube responsible for the content they host, which might sound okay in theory, but in practice it's tremendously difficult to put into action, considering there are hundreds of hours of content being uploaded on YouTube every minute now? That's an insane amount of content that YouTube needs to regulate. So they need to devise an algorithm that already exists to some smaller degree, that can scan and recognize when someone uploads a content that they do not 100% own the rights to. Marcelian does not have 100% rights over World of Warcraft, which means that our videos will be blocked for EU residents, and since being able to regulate over 400 hours of video uploaded every minute is unrealistic, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter and such will simply have to block content entirely since it will become a liability. YouTube CEO Susan stated multiple times that the legislation is unrealistic from a financial perspective, and the damages it can cause will be more than financial. What does all of this mean for a viewer in the EU? Well, this means that you won't be able to view a lot of videos on a lot of topics. Pretty much any channel talking about having footage of any game, movie, music, news, books, anything at all that someone else has created and marketed will be blocked to every country residing in the European Union. If you are a content creator in EU, like Marcelian&Flame, Taliesin and Nevitel, you will have your videos blocked and potentially be blocked from uploading videos altogether. If you are outside the EU, well, you probably will not be able to see the content that creators upload from within the EU, which might not be as bad as for us Europeans. In more general terms, viewers will not be able to see billions of videos ranging from gaming to fan-made songs, parodies, mashups, etc., while content creators not being able to create content not only out of their personal passion, but as a source of income, as a job. So far, I talked about the upfront consequences of being restricted in terms of access to content. Remember, this is not just YouTube, it's Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, and it's not just gaming, it's memes, guys. We will lose the memes because in their nature, memes use pictures, sounds, GIFs taken from movies, shows, official news, etc. And if you think this is not bad enough, well then, let me remind you that even though this is happening in Europe, there's no guarantee that it will not continue in the rest of the world. If you honestly think that if this law gets passed, you won't see the same thing happening everywhere else, you haven't been paying attention. I mentioned earlier that the legislation aims at protecting IPs from copyright infringement, allegedly. Now, I'm usually very skeptical, but looking at the broader meaning of all of this, we are essentially having our freedom of expression being restricted. It's not as obvious from the current iteration of the problem. But come on, don't tell me this stuff will just stop here, with YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, etc. It's not a secret that the internet is the world's largest source of information, communication, social platforms, and so on. It connects us on a global scale. We can say whatever we want, whenever we want. And we can do this because nobody can control the internet. Of course, people stealing from other people should be penalized for. Well, stealing. But people sharing thoughts, ideas through a platform being blocked because the legislation is not specific enough to offer them the freedom they need? That doesn't sound right. By all means, if Blizzard considers that we are using their IP for personal profit, that we are claiming the rights for WoW, by all means, penalize us, stop us from making a revenue, but blocking us entirely because they cannot confirm we own 100% of every little bit of content we put in a video is just wrong. There has to be a better way. I do agree that IP holders need protection against every form of piracy and copyright infringement. This is something that needs to happen. But the current method, the Article 13 method, is not the right way. This is why we need to speak up against it. We need to tell the European government that real people will be negatively affected. Real people do not want this, because at the end of the day, however fantastical and mythological this seems, the political group of a society should be in charge of its people's well-being. Parliaments, governments, they theoretically are made to protect our interest. And this is not our interest. If you're watching this, we need to raise awareness and oppose this, to essentially protect our freedom of expression. That doesn't mean we get to steal and assume the intellectual property as our own, but we can talk about it. We use it to share an idea, a concept, or simply use it as a tool. And if we have to pay them for this, then fine. That's a much more fair way of going about it than being blocked altogether. Let me be clear once again. The idea behind the legislation is correct, but the implementation of it is wrong because it will create severe negative consequences that will ultimately restrict people from sharing their creativity with the world, regardless of what form it takes. Please go to the www.savetheinternet.info and sign the petition against Article 13. The petition is currently 4 million signatures strong because people around the world are united against this. Please help everyone take a better way in approaching copyright and creative freedom, one that doesn't have to come at the expense of the other. We are smart enough to find a better way. Let's not be lazy and take the easy way. If you're a content creator yourself, make a video about it, make a post, a thread, even if it has been done by people before. It might be annoying to others, but it's in everyone's best interest, because if you think that once Article 13 becomes a law, it will stop here in EU with platforms like YouTube and Facebook, sorry, you are being a bit naive. I mentioned earlier that for me this whole thing started when I felt my dream, my passion, my job as a YouTube content creator was threatened. And it's true. However, my motivation to do more research and make this video stems from something fundamental. The internet has always been an unchained beast of information and connectivity on a global scale. And the reason we are here today, looking on 9gag, posting on Reddit, bantering on Facebook, and watching reviews, lectures, parodies, memes, and more on YouTube is because the internet is unchained and we are free to express ourselves. Freedom of expression and copyright protection should not be mutually exclusive, and it seems that this is what's happening with this legislation. This whole video was made from the perspective of one nerd on the internet taking things through his own filters and trying to understand the bigger picture. It's one thing for me not to be able to make videos anymore and go work a 9 to 5. It's another thing for me to go online and filter through billions of blocked videos, images, articles, websites because the government is passing a legislation that sacrifices one side for the sake of the other. Thanks for watching the video, and I sincerely hope you guys take a part in this. Of course, it would be amazing if you shared our video so more people can know that this shit is for real, if even a small channel like Marcelian&Flame is jumping on this train. But at the very least, share the petition with your friends and fuck our video. The awareness is more important, and let's get that bad boy to 5 million signatures. That will show those politicians that no government can overthrow creative freedom. Love you all, and love all of your support shown so far on our channel. Our channel has grown so much in the last year and we couldn't have done it without you guys. We are here to stay because we love WoW, we love games, and we love the community. Yes, even the trolls. Now go back under your bridge. My name is Flame, and I'll catch you guys next time.